My name is Vikas Mathur. I'm the Senior Vice President of Products for Actian, and I'm going to talk to you about Avalanche, at least the vision of Avalanche, and how we believe it is the data platform of the future. So let's start with what a typical enterprise would encounter or use their data for. And if you look at a typical enterprise today, pretty much all the functions are leveraging data or starting to use data and definitely have aspirations for using it in unique ways. Marketing, to start with, that unique segment of one is what they're trying to get to. Sales is trying to track the journey for the customer for every touch point. Supply chain is trying to keep it lean, and hence they need real-time data to come to them. Manufacturing, again, lean, but I also want to make sure I don't overproduce. And so demand forecasting, which is all means that I need that signal coming in from retail at a granular level and in real time. And then not to talk about the functions in a typical company, right? Pretty much as a product over here, for example, we want to be metering everything possible. So if I go to a traditional data platform, right, like let's say Teradata or Exadata, so to speak, they're usually fairly performant. They can handle a good amount of concurrency, but what weighs them down is the legacy architecture. So first thing, you have to buy it for peak load. If I'm a retailer who has a peak during the Thanksgiving, Black Friday event, I don't want to buy for that peak. I want to just buy for what is my average and be able to scale up at that time. Why should I buy for that now? Same thing, when I scale up over here, I need to scale up in terms of one appliance at a time, which is literally a discrete chunk. And usually these appliances are fairly expensive. Siloed data continues to be siloed in them, irrespective, just because you would end up having a separate data lake, like a Hadoop data lake or something like that on-prem, because it's so much cheaper, right? Appliances typically tend to run on a high, 10, 15, 20, sometimes even 50K per terabyte, which usually is pretty expensive. And then you are hit with a refresh cycle every 3 to 5 years, and obviously not to talk about all the maintenance and the DBAs that need to be around to keep these things up and running in a typical enterprise. Now, when we started reimagining this, we were thinking of a lot of these constraints, but we were also thinking of the requirements that were coming from the use cases that I talked about at the onset of the presentation. So high performance and concurrency were pretty high on our list. And I think what we have as our mojo is that technology that can give you that super high performance out of the gate, right? And that's essentially through tuning on the hardware that we have done. On top of that, though, we do want to make sure that data is separate, or the storage is separate from compute. What that allows you to do is now you can store hundreds of terabytes of data on this platform without the need for a separate Hadoop lake at super low cost, at the rate of what an object store will cost you. But compute, on the other hand, doesn't have to scale with it. Compute instead can be that elastic scale mode, which can scale when you have Black Friday, but can go down to super low levels when your peak is over, right? And that way, essentially, you're not paying for as much. Now, we have legacy on-prem, which is where we cut our teeth on the technology. But then over the last 3 years, we have built ourselves on AWS, Azure, and GCP. And I think the platform that gives us a unique advantage to be able to have customers go on their journey from on-prem to the cloud, because our technology can work in both places. Now, all of this needs to happen at a low price point. We are very well aware of that. It's low TCO, low cost per query, whichever way you cut it. And we cannot forget the ingestion aspect while we are doing all this, because live data, at least from the requirements that we are seeing, live data, semi-structured data are key, but then we also want to make sure that data quality is maintained through this process as you are building your pipelines of it, right? So we want to provide tools or hooks to be able to do all this. And last but not the least, it has to be secure. In fact, more secure than it is inside the on-prem data warehouse. So what have we come up with? So I'm going to build this all out in one go so that you see the whole picture. And it's a pretty picture if you look at it. The middle of it is essentially the engines. We obviously have a lot of engines in-house. We have the world's best, highest performing analytical engine, which is Vector. And we have already put that into Avalanche, and we are offering it as a service. We also have a great transactional engine as an Ingress, where we have our legacy, and we have built it, we have evolved it to be what is Actian X, and that is also something that we want to put in. In addition, we want to make sure we have our NoSQL engine into the product. We have Zen, which is our embedded technology, also have a footprint here. And then we want to bring in external engines, especially to solve those AI ML type workloads, so that we can run them embedded in the platform. Now, we want to do all this on object store, kind of the bulk store in the cloud, which is that S3 or ADLS or Google Cloud Storage, and we want to make sure that we are cloud agnostic, right? So we support AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, but we'll also support configurations where we are running the data sitting in our account as well as in the customer account. So if you don't want it to ever leave your account, absolutely, we'll find a way to do it. And then we'll have a way to deploy it on-prem. Now, all this is good. I also want to understand how the pipelines will work, right? So on the integration side, again, we have a great product or great set of technology in-house with Data Connect. And what we are doing is building that into the platform, right? And we are adding to it as we build. But at the core, it's the same technology, but now the engines are coming and being deployed in Avalanche, and you will also be able to build those pipes here. And then in terms of consumption, obviously, we want to make sure we have good connectivity to tools that a business analyst uses or data scientist uses or a data engineer, right? All three are prime personas that we sort of cater towards. Last but not the least, the goal is to offer this as a fully managed data platform. I think that's what we have today, or what we have built today. We will continue to build on that legacy. And with it comes all kinds of abilities of one-touch deploy, elastic scalability, pay-per-use, data sharing. Obviously, we have to be security compliant with a bunch of different standards, and all of this stuff, right? So essentially, make it a full platform on which you can run any type of workload, click a button, and it's available to you. And it's then consumed by these personas on any cloud of their choice, right? So that's essentially the goal that we are running with. Now, an early customer on our platform has been AA. AA has been a long-time customer for Actian. They use our technology on-prem, and then one of the early customers to start leveraging Avalanche, specifically on Azure, is where they have their workloads. And this is a great use case for us because it pulls on our high performance, since their requirement was to do pricing workloads or provide price quotes and do those calculations on the fly in sub-second or 1 or 2 seconds at the max, and do a bunch of analytics in the background that potentially help with fraud, risk management, etc. Right? All of this while also leveraging the data integration bits that we have in the platform, right? So essentially, able to bring the data or data pipelines using Avalanche, put it into the warehouse, leverage that warehouse for consumption with their applications, right? So they are basically, I would say, one of the customers that I love because they're using the hybrid capability as well as the data integration and the warehouse feature of the platform. So hopefully I gave you a good vision of where we are going with the platform and how you will see it evolve over the next year. What I would like to do now is to turn it over to Emma, who is our Senior Vice President of Engineering. And we actually work fairly in a two-in-a-box model. So we are pretty tight at the hip for what we want to prioritize, what we want to push in the platform, and then what our engineering team delivers towards it.